Good evening. I will now call the April 11th, 2023 meeting of the Ben Lapine School Board of Directors to order. Thank you for allowing us to eat between the budget and regular meetings. I would like to introduce our participants this evening. To my left, Director Amy Tatum, Director Kina Chadwick, Director Shamiko Montgomery, and Director Shirley Olson. Vice Chair Marcus LeGrand is joining us remotely. To my right is Superintendent Steve Cook, Board Clerk Janet Bojanowski, and I am Melissa Barnes-Delakia, Chair of the Board. We have Erin Trimble and Kayla Celadon joining us for ASL interpretation. And as always, our Spanish interpretation, as well as closed captioning, is being provided on the Ben Lapine's, not closed captioning, Spanish interpretation is being provided on the BLS School Board YouTube page. We'll move to number 2, which is the Pledge of Allegiance. I invite you to join me in standing, removing your hats, and saying the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. We will now move to the review of the agenda. Dr. Cook, are there any changes to the agenda?
There are no changes to the agenda.
Fellow board members, I have one change to the agenda, which is a request to move the presentation from the Education Foundation to happen directly after public comment, as they are already also doing a fundraising activity tonight to raise money for the Education Foundation, which benefits our schools. Are there any other requests for changes? All right, then hearing no requests, no additional requests, we will proceed with the agenda as posted, with the one exception that we will move the Education Foundation report up to be directly after public comment. We'll now move to district recognitions led by Superintendent Cook.
Thank you, Chair Barnes-Delakia. By the way, everybody notice how cute these two look together today, and I don't understand it wasn't on purpose. Yeah. All right. I'm very excited today to have a guest with us. As you know, we've been doing Champion of Students Awards for quite some time now. Most of the time they go to adults. This time I'm excited to honor one of our students. So at this time, could we get this month's champion to come up front, Nev Gerard? Everybody give her a round of applause. Thank you, Nev. All right, our April champion for students is Nev Gerard, a junior at Bend High School. Nev was nominated by one of her teachers, Mr. Fox, Matt Fox. Wave, everybody. Give him a hand, please. Here's what Mr. Fox said in nominating Nev. Nev has worked tirelessly as part of the Design Justice class to improve Bend High and the school community for students. She has worked to improve access to school-based health centers, mental health services, environmental issues, dress code issues, and on making menstrual products more accessible to all students. She also took her own time out of the summer to prepare and present to the Innovative Teaching and Learning Conference, where she shared with the school staff and administration the impact of student-led work around issues of equity, wellness, and design. She recently presented to the Oregon Health Authority on the importance of student-led work around access to school-based health centers. Nev has continually proven to be a champion for her fellow students and has led work that often goes unnoticed by her peers, but helps them in countless ways. So, well, let's just take a second. That's all from Mr. Fox. So, Mr. Fox, let's give him a round of applause for recognizing this. So, speaking for myself, Nev, it is very clear that you care deeply for your fellow students and are following your passion and purpose in making our world a better place. Thank you for that. So, let's please join me in congratulating Nev Gerard for being our April champion for students. I'm going to read. I'm giving her a chance to think about what she wants to say to you all. Okay, So we have this plaque. Ben Lapine Schools Champion for Students proudly presents on April 11, 2023 to Nev Gerard. Thank you, Nev Gerard, for your commitment to making important improvements to your school community on behalf of all students at Ben Senior High School. Your advocacy demonstrates a passion and purpose for positive change, and your leadership underscores the value of student voice and action. As a champion for students, you are an inspiration to us all. Now, before we give her another round of applause, I would like to hear, we talked a lot about school-based health centers, access to menstrual products. You've been busy on all kinds of aspects. Pick one thing and talk about why you felt motivated to make a change in that area and tell us about it.
The first thing that comes to mind is our access to school-based health centers, because it's such an important resource that wasn't getting utilized at Bend High. And so after our advertisement campaign, our statistics show that people are using them now, which is really great, especially for underserved people.
Thank you. One more round of applause for Nev, everybody. She's fantastic. Thank you. And Nev is, I think, only our second student since we've started this award. So one more positive for her. Thank you.
Thank you, and thank you, Nev, and thank you, Matt, for all of your work as a student advocate and then with the Design Justice class. We really, as board members, I can't say enough how impressed we are with the students in that class and yourself. And there has been major policy in this district that has been adopted because of you. So thank you. We'll now move to item number 5, public comment. The board and district leadership value communication from students, families, staff, and community members as it helps to guide our work. Public comment is just one of many avenues available to ensure this connection. Members of the public may always submit thoughts, questions, or concerns to the board via email, as well as in writing, and individual board members may make themselves available for phone calls, video calls, or meetings in person. This said, I want to remind the public that while this is a meeting of the Board of Directors, it is not of the Board of Directors in public. It is not a meeting of the Board of Directors with the public. It is a meeting for the board to conduct district business. As such, the board will refrain from responding to public comment made during tonight's meeting. Instead, issues may be recorded and referred to the proper staff person to follow up with you. We will now open for public comment and hear from stakeholders on topics in the order that they appear on our agenda. Our policy is to typically take 2 minutes per speaker. A timer is provided on the large screen and in Zoom to ensure every speaker receives updates during the presentation on remaining time. And if the speaker goes over time, or if the speaker's message is not in adherence with our policies, for example, being personally directed, abusive, discriminatory, repetitive, or off topic, I may ask the speaker to cease and terminate that speaker's privilege to address the board. At this time, we will hear from Mark Koopman.
Thank you for having me back here again. Mark Koopman. I am a health teacher at High Desert Middle School, and I want to speak just a little bit about the Menstrual Dignity Act, just a little refresher before I introduce a couple of very important human beings. The Menstrual Dignity Act, we are in the second year of implementation in the state. It came around in 2020 as a result of a lot of student voice, a lot of which came from Matt Fox's Design Justice class and our students here at in the Ben Lapine School District. So we're going to kind of continue that as the presentations go. Some pieces about the Menstrual Dignity Act. It has 4 big pillars: privacy, inclusivity, access, and education. The ODE has given us a toolkit that has outlined some of the program requirements as well as recommendations. One of the major requirements is schools will provide products and dispensers in a safe, private, accessible, and gender-affirming manner. Schools will plan a program including dispenser selection, product variety, and placement. A second requirement is education. It must cover menstrual health as a positive part of being human without shame in a way that is affirming and accessible to all students of all genders. Instructions must be available in all bathrooms. Along with the requirements, there's some recommendations. One of them, staff engagement and training. A second one, family and community engagement, being transparent and available to our families. And the third is student and youth engagement. Understand and elevate student voice and needs. And that's what brings me here for this part of the meeting. I also get to facilitate a leadership class at High Desert Middle School. And I've encouraged these students to come to me with projects. I had 3 students do so around the Menstrual Dignity Act and how to address those needs at High Desert. And you're going to hear from them about their project this evening. So I've got Tamara and Daisy that are going to speak next.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Tamara Spalding. I'm a student at High Desert Middle School, and I'm part of the Classroom Menstrual Products Project. The reason why I wanted to join this project is I believe everyone should be comfortable in their school and have the necessities to help them learn. We have completed a lot during this project. Here are all the things we have completed. One thing we have done is that we've had a meeting with the staff at HDMS about their input on our projects and to expect menstrual products in their classrooms, and they love the idea and couldn't wait to get menstrual baskets in their classroom. Also, if you're wondering, how are the students reacting to this? We are currently finishing up a video basically explaining to our fellow classmates the importance of respecting and taking care of menstrual products in the bathroom, but also in the soon-to-be classrooms.
Thank you.
Hello, my name is Daisy Chavez and I'm an 8th grader at HDMS. My purpose in helping the Menstrual Dignity Act is because I am a girl who has a period and I know the struggles. I also know that other people struggle. For example, a girl at HDMS asked one of our male teachers for a pad. This is something that really excited us because the fact that this girl felt comfortable to ask a male teacher who actually intimidates most girls is truly something that made us feel like our work is worth it. That is why we are in the process of providing menstrual products and field trip kits, which include a variety of things, such as pads and tampons. And for our field trip kits, we have included some medical essentials and of course our period products, pads and tampons. So we're really getting close. But anyways, we really hope you acknowledge our presentation, and we cannot wait for what God has planned next for us. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from Xanthos Fairham, and please correct my pronunciation if I did not get that correct.
Is it? Okay. Sorry. Okay. My name is Xanthos Fairham, and I'm a senior at Bent High. I'm here today to ask you, the school board, to publicly oppose Bills HB 3044, HB 2186, SB 453, SB 749, and HB 2477. There is a handout in front of you that has a summary of each. These are 5 bills in the Oregon legislature that aim to implement transphobic and homophobic policies in Oregon schools. We, queer and transgender students, deserve to know that we are allowed to be ourselves and feel safe in school, just as any cisgender and straight student. Making students feel welcome and supported goes directly towards your board and goal of student engagement. So I ask you to stand with us and stand for us. As the 5th largest school district in Oregon, your voice carries tremendous weight, and by making public stance against these bills, you are letting government officials know that these policies are not welcome in our state and not welcome in our school district. Though these bills are in early stages, now more than ever, we can let lawmakers know that we do not support these bills. We know that as a district, there is much work to be done to make our trans students and our LGBTQI students feel welcome. While I understand you may not want to get involved, silence in these matters demonstrates complicity. By speaking up publicly and not remaining silent in the face of these hateful bills, you will model to students and the community what being an ally looks like. Thank you.
Thank you. We will now hear from Jennifer Sawyer. Thank you, students.
Is it on? Oh, cool. All right, first off, thank you very much for your service to the community. I know how much effort it takes to do this, be in this position, and I wanted to thank you for the time that you take to serve the community in this manner. My name is Jen Sawyer. I am a graduate of the Ben Lapine School District, a mother of 2 children who are currently enrolled in the Ben Lapine School District, wife of a longtime district employee. I myself am a new addition to the inadequately paid support staff for Ben Lapine School District. I joined the team, the Caldera team, in September as the Mistress of Detention and In-School Suspension. My official title is ISS and Behavioral Support. I am here tonight on my own accord and to speak no ill will towards my colleagues. I am here on my own accord, and I am attempting to encourage the lassoing of the pendulum towards center. I am deeply concerned about the inability to hold students accountable for repeat behaviors. I am well versed on the restorative justice process and applaud the efforts to implement an approach based on education when it is applicable. However, and in the case of my son, he has become a guinea pig for this process. And I worry that this process puts the rehabilitation of the bully over the victim, which is what is happening to my child and what seems to be happening to a lot of students within the school district right now. Again, focusing on the rehabilitation of the bully at the mercy of the victim. My son is being the guinea pig for this, and I ask that we take a harder look at how we are implementing restorative justice process and how we implement accountability and ownership in schools. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. This ends public comment. In terms of the student presentations tonight, I will invite my fellow board members to reach out to individual students as they desire or see fit. And then for Ms. Sawyer's statement, if the district can take that into consideration as they are doing strategic work in that area. We'll now move to the board chair report. I have, oh gosh, I'm sorry. Yes, we changed the agenda. Education, we will now move to a fantastic presentation from our great partners at the Education Foundation. So we have Jamie Goldman, the executive director, and Odetta Dare, the president of the board. Thank you.
I think we have a slideshow. Okay, no worries. Here we go. Hello, my name is Jamie Goldman. I am one of the new executive directors for the Education Foundation for Ben Lapine Schools. And I am Odette Adair. I'm the current president of the Education Foundation. I've been on the board for about 12 years. Many of you probably have seen me around. The foundation is an independent nonprofit organization comprised of civic and business leaders, parents, and educators. Our funding priorities over the last 35 years have been to increase educational and extracurricular opportunities for all students in our district and to encourage creative and innovative curriculum in our classrooms. We have also added the Perseverance and Latinx scholarships to our funding priorities. I thought I did. Thanks. Our classroom grant program provides teachers the opportunities to create innovative projects in diverse ways in STEM, art, music, and wellness. For example, years ago, we funded iPod Nanos in the classroom based on a grant that a teacher submitted. That grew into a pilot program for a full classroom set of iPads, which then led to district implementation of iPads across for all of our students. Other grants have included classroom libraries, African drums, Spherobots, new kitchen equipment, and wellness tools to help manage anxiety in our classrooms. For the 2022-2023 school year, we awarded more than $50,000 in classroom grants to our schools. Oh, somebody helping? Okay, activity fee scholarships. We increase opportunities for middle school and high school students to participate in OSAA sanctioned activities by providing scholarships to our students who are served under the free and reduced lunch program. This closes the play equity gap by covering 75% of the fees required to participate in those activities. Our invaluable partnership with Mount Bachelor and their Ski for School program has allowed us to help thousands of students since 2005, including track star Ashton Eaton. Opportunities for students. Recently, we've added 2 additional scholarship programs to our funding priorities. The first is a Perseverance Scholarship. This is for seniors who have overcome difficult circumstances in order to graduate and they're looking to further their college education. The second is the Latinx Scholarship. This local program is the first in our area to support graduating Latinx students from Ben Lapine schools who, and we couldn't do this without OCF, Les Schwab, and the Central Oregon Latino Community Association. Making it all happen. We do not receive $1 from government funding. We do all of our programs through community support and foundation grants. And the biggest way you can help us out right now is our upcoming events, our Trivia Night on May 3rd from 6:30 to 10 at Silver Moon Brewing. It's our biggest fundraiser of the year. If you ever went to it at Tower Theater, it's super, super fun. The QR code's up on the screen, the website's up on the screen. If you have questions, feel free to reach out to us. It's gonna be great. We do need team sponsors, and general admission tickets are on sale now, so please feel free to check out the website. And then our monthly pint nights is a new thing we started this year. Tonight, that's where we're headed, is to Sun River Brewing on Galveston. $1 per pint goes to the foundation to help us fund activity fee scholarships and our classroom grants. So please, hopefully you'll join us for a pint afterwards. Sorry, I keep forgetting. How can the Ben Lapine School District and the community support the Education Foundation? Because we cannot do it without you guys. We would love the ability to communicate with teachers and staff directly. I know that there's procedures, but we would love to figure out a way to do that. We are also asking for help in spreading the word about what we do and opportunities available for our teachers and students. Many in our community don't know the opportunities that Foundation provides. Because we do not receive any government funding, we rely on families, individual donors, business, and foundation grants for all of our funding. You can support us today by making a donation using the QR code on the screen, attending our events such as Pint Nights and Trivia Night. Spread the word, like us on Facebook and Instagram, share our posts, forward our emails to families and friends, and you're always welcome to come visit us. We're in room 105 downstairs in the building, so please pop on in. Thank you for your time and your continued support. We look forward to further developing our long-standing relationship. Any questions?
Thank you so much. Are there any questions for our guests?
No, but I can't probably make it tonight, but see you at the meeting Thursday. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay. Thank you.
All right. Just on behalf of the board, thank you so much for all of the work that you do. And really, our teachers, I think, are the ones that just so appreciate having those classroom grants and being able to fund different activities. And so thank you for everything you do for our schools.
Thank you.
I took a note.
Love a school board team.
I wrote down a note and I put a star next to it. We'll see. All right. We are going to move to now, for reals, the board chair report. Sorry about that. All right, I have 3 quick things. One, I wanted to speak to the fact that we have a special election coming up. The special election is on May 16th, and it's very important and very easy to vote, so I'm just encouraging the public to go out. You'll get your voter pamphlets in a couple of weeks, but make sure to look at that and look at your different opportunities. There'll be a city club and League of Women's Voters are having a forum. There's the Bulletin and the Source that are doing interviews, but just go out there, get educated on all of the different seats out there, and please make sure to vote. Second, I wanted to mention some of the work. You know, it's because of spring break, there's been a month, and I just wanted to highlight a little bit of some of the work that we've been doing as a board. One of the things that's most important to us as a board and really fuels our work is being really engaged with our students, with our families, the parents, and with our community. And so I just wanted to give a snapshot, and I'll do it myself quickly here. Do people want to share their own? Yeah, I'm just going to do a snapshot. But here's a couple of ways that we've been engaging with our families and with our students. I will say for myself that with COOP, I met Megan Perkins, City Councilor Megan Perkins and I met with High Desert Middle School and Ben Senior High School students to meet with their leadership teams and answer questions and hear from them about what's working and what they want tackled next. Mayor Melanie Keebler and I met with families from R.E. Jewell last week and actually walked their routes because they were concerned about the traffic in their neighborhoods. And that group of families actually the city has been able to advocate in a way that both the city and the district responded to in order to keep their kids safe. And then I also have been in multiple conversations recently with different families from Pacific Crest Middle School around different incidents that have been happening and sharing feedback and helping to put families in touch with the right people, whether they're in the district office or at the school site. I am super excited about the work that Keena Chadwick did recently. We had a student town hall, if you're not familiar with the town halls that Restorative Justice and Equity runs, but they were able to facilitate table groups at the student town hall for our students in that work. I have Carrie Douglas, who has been very plugged in with her own school, the school that her daughter goes to, and has been meeting with families both in and out of the classroom as well as the parenting class to talk with parents about their experiences and gather information that way. Shamiko Montgomery has met with and I think you did this with Keena, met with the Design Justice class at Ben's Senior High School, Matt Fox's class, to again hear from students. And then Director Tatum, literally in her job sees children and family every day. And let me tell you, if your doctor is, or your nurse practitioner is on the school board, you're telling them what you want in your schools. And so Director Tatum hears probably more than she wants to at her day job, but is constantly talking with families. And then Director LeGrand has been in and out of every different forum, whether it's doing the Evolve experience, which had families from across our district coming together with law enforcement and talking about really pretty big, tough issues and giving input that way, to the work that he has been doing with students, to the work that he does as part of the Fathers Group, really listening to families who are struggling. And I think, we heard from one of those families tonight, but about their child's experience in our schools. I think we love to hear from our students and our families and what they're experiencing, and it just helps inform our work. So I want to thank both our public for inviting us to come and speak. Oh, I forgot Shirley Olson. And Shirley Olson, who my goodness, is so plugged into Lapine. But one of the ones that I wanted to highlight on Shirley was that is the Lapine Chamber. And so she actually goes to the different chamber events as well as the Sun River Women's Foundation events and really hears from the community in Lapine about what they want and how they want partnership with our school district for that community. So again, a lot of outreach that's happening, a lot of listening that's happening. If you have something you want a school board member to come to, send us an invitation. Thank you. The last piece I wanted to highlight was just the City Club last month. And it was a really wonderful event, but I just wanted to take that as an opportunity to highlight something. I went at our school board table and we had Deschutes County Mental Health there, and the focus was on gun safety. And they had 3 people speaking, 2 of whom are gun enthusiasts. Both of those 2 were women, and one was even an emergency doctor. And what we really talked about, or what they shared, is that gunshot is the 2nd leading cause of death for children in Oregon. 2nd leading cause of death. And the majority of those are suicide. And they talked about how the successful completion of a suicide attempt increases by 67% if there's a handgun that's readily available, and that the time between making a decision to attempt suicide and completing that attempt is 5 minutes. So a trigger lock or a safe storage safe can stop that attempt from happening. And so from gun enthusiasts, from veterans, they shared some really important work that veterans are doing, veteran to veteran, and talked about the fact that there's a valet service. If you're a vet and you're feeling suicidal, the sheriff can come and pick up your guns and take them away and hold them for you for a while. But that gun owners, veterans, medical health professionals all agree that safe storage is something we can do to protect our children and to reduce youth suicide. And so it was a really important, really collaborative. City Club's a really diverse group, and it was a really collaborative message. And so I wanted to share that because that was one of the things I did as a school board member this past month. So those are my 3. I'll hand it to Dr. Cook.
Thank you, Chair Barnes-Delakia. Well, one of your 3 took one of my 4, so I'm down to 3. A quick call out to the town hall. Kinsey and I both got an opportunity to participate in the town hall, and just really great to be in partners with RJ&E to be a part of that experience. And so about 80 of our students got to have that opportunity, and it's a good partnership that we're going to continue. We're committed to continuing to build that. The second thing that's a quick one is I just want to call attention to the job fair that we hosted on March 23rd at Eagle Crest. Far exceeded expectations. I don't know if you remember that day, but it was one of those weird days where the sun was shining and then all of a sudden it was blizzard conditions. It was interesting going to the facility. It was my first time at Eagle Crest. I was like, where has this been hidden all my life? My goodness. Lots of great candidates, and regional partners were there also talking with these candidates, but definitely a good experience to talk with people about possibility of working for our school district. And then the 2 that I want to focus on, I think the most, is I want to draw attention again to the task force. Though we're calling it until the task force is going to name itself. We're kind of talking about it as climate and culture. We've got roughly 35 folks that are engaged in this and involved. We've got outside facilitation. We've got our first 3 dates set. Those dates are April 24th, May 16th, and May 31st. And there's homework. The members of this task force have been given some kind of grounding readings to help us get kind of pointed in the right direction on how we're going to change the trajectory across the system. And if you recall, this relates to, I'm going to mix a couple of terms up, but I think the first one that's probably the most important one to kind of call out is this idea of disrupted learning occurring in our classrooms. And what are we going to do in response to these conditions that have changed dramatically in the last handful of years, and what's our next steps with this. Shared leadership, distributive leadership, you call it, how we see fit is this idea that it's not, we're going to work on this together. And this is going to be a collaborative effort based in trust and how we're going to make a big impact across the system. And both with short-term expectations, but also long-term expectations as well. And so just want to call that out. I'm excited about the direction that we're going with that. And then my last item, kind of ironically, has, if you happen to read the paper this morning, this was actually an item I wished to talk about even before the paper this morning, is this, the city's MUPTE plan, which I'll start by telling you what MUPTE stands for. Multiple Unit Property Tax Exemption Program. And the city is promoting this, and it's a very meaningful program to work on essentially building new opportunities in our community, both in the urban growth boundary and outside of the urban growth boundary. And ironically, there was an editorial in the paper today, if you haven't had a chance to read it, that draws this out. And essentially what it amounts to is enticing developers to commit to some form of either low-income housing or housing or development that is going to benefit the public. And there are criteria that fit what is that public benefit. And the very first one is has been seen by one of the taxing districts. And as you well know, we are one of the taxing districts in this community, among many others like the library board, the county, the city, and others, Parks and Rec, et cetera, COCC. And this program requires 50% of the taxing district by volume of the amount of taxation to approve these programs. And so there's this interesting dynamic. We've gotten the first application in this program is now in the ledger, in the coffer, if you will, and it's working its way through the system. And we will be presenting to you, our team will be presenting to you in May about this first application. And since it's the first time the city has had an applicant, it's uncharted territory. And so there's lots of interesting kinds of dialogue and things happening with it. And I think there's going to be, when we present that to you, conversation about what's our involvement in this, what's our purpose, and what's the goal of the program. And I think that's part of what to expect from us. And I would just tell you, please, glad to share more information. We've shared a little bit with you so far. We're glad to continue in that dialogue, and we'll be back in front of you next month to talk about this very first application that was received. And it is more complicated than just, is it a yes or a no? Because essentially what we're doing is incentivizing this growth and development. So there's a financial cost to pay for whatever the public benefit is, and that's part of what we're going to be talking about. So I would invite you to be prepared, both civically in our responsibility as a partner agency and also as a board member about what might be next as we take on this responsibility about giving feedback to the city as these plans come before us. And this is already one that's going to be interesting. I'm certain to hear that. So that's it for the superintendent's report tonight. I'm glad to stand for any questions.
Can you let people know what percentage by volume the district is?
So out of the 100% possible taxing agencies, we are the largest at 42.6%. The city of Bend is 21.2%. Deschutes County is 14.8%. Parks and Rec is 10.3%. And then there's various others that constitute the other 11%. That's COCC, the ESD, 911 board, and I think the library is the last group on that.
Thank you. Are there any questions for Steve on the superintendent's report?
I do have a question. Dr. Cook, do you anticipate giving us a recommendation on May 9th?
Yes. We will give you a recommendation. It is complicated, and we will lay out what I would say is kind of both sides of that, but we will also give you a recommendation.
Thank you.
And just to be clear, I asked specifically that they do make a recommendation to us, that they can present both sides, but that they have the expertise, and we want our team of experts to give us a recommendation. All right, we will now move to the consent agenda, item number 8. I will entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I will make a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Thank you. I will take a second.
I will second.
Great. Director Tatum has moved, Director Olson has seconded. Are there any requests to remove anything from the consent agenda? Hearing no requests for changes, I will call for a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Director LeGrand? All right, I think we might have lost Director LeGrand, so I will make it a motion of 5-0, or motion passes 5-0, and then if we hear Director LeGrand, we can add his vote back in. We'll now move to consent for information. The district is adopting the following policies as originally presented: GBA-AR, GCBD-AP, GCBD/GDBDB-AP, GCBDD/GDBDD-AP, and JFCM-AP. The district is adopting GCBDA/GDBDA-AP and AR as originally presented, with updated titles to reflect protected military leave as was recommended by the board during the March board meeting. The district is deleting GCBDD-AR. There was no public feedback received on any of the policies. We will now move to action items, and I will hand it over to Director Tatum for the Resolution 1947 Teacher Appreciation.
Whereas teachers mold future citizens through guidance and education, and whereas teachers encounter students of widely differing backgrounds, and whereas our country's future depends on providing quality education to all students, and whereas teachers spend countless hours preparing lessons, evaluating progress, counseling and coaching students, and performing community service, and whereas our community recognizes and supports its teachers in educating the children of this community. Now therefore, be it resolved that the Board of Directors for Ben Lapine Schools proclaims May 8th through 12th, 2023 to be Teacher Appreciation Week. And be it further resolved that the Board of Directors for Ben Lapine Schools strongly encourages all members of our community to join in expressing appreciation to our teachers for their dedication and devotion to their work.
Thank you. I will accept a motion to pass the resolution.
I move to adopt Resolution 1947.
Thank you. Is there a second?
I will second.
Thank you. Director Chadwick has motioned. Director Tatum has seconded. Is there any discussion? Hearing no discussion, we'll move to a vote. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Director LeGrand? Okay. Motion passes 5-0. We'll now move into item number 11, which is our reports, as we had report 11A earlier. So we'll now move to report 11B, which is our finance report with Leah Bibeau, Finance Director.
Good evening, everybody. In your board package, you will find the third quarter financial report. This report was compiled using our data as best we know up through March 31st, as well as our projections and encumbrances through June 30th. The great news is at this point in time is we've got a good portion of our year under our belt at this point, so our projections are really getting fine-tuned both in revenue and expenses. I'd like to highlight in the revenue area, we have completed another rebalancing of our state school fund based on known enrollments as throughout the state, as well as how it impacts us. I have also been able to complete our projections for our prior year true-ups. Prior year true-ups are the holdback of the state school fund from the prior year, as well as reconciling our transportation grants, high-cost disability. We've submitted all those reports and have a pretty firm understanding of what those amounts are going to add to our bottom line for this year. Overall, we're going to get I'm estimating about 2.7 million. That's reflected in that second line there on the state school fund. That's going to help add to our ending fund balance. Another increase I've been able to do is on the earnings from investments. Typically, that's our insurance from our bank accounts, cash accounts. We are allowed to do short-term investments where the market dictates and gives us some opportunities. So I've taken some of our operating funds and invested those, and we've managed to bump our earnings up about $500,000 just for operating funds over what the pool would have paid us. So that's another good bottom line for us in that regard. When we get down to expenses, we've been able to predict based on our current staffing levels, the salaries, the benefits, and all of those expenses. As they go through the end of the year, we've completed our hiring. We've got all our new staff on. You know, each year part of our estimates and budgeting process includes calculating, I'll call it the turnover savings is what we call it, because there's always wait periods for benefits and things like that. Those are always estimates built into our budget. Seeing how they are truly coming and materializing now that we're halfway through the year has allowed us to true up our expenses a lot better in the salaries and wages area. It looks like we're going to be coming in a little bit over budget, but it's definitely smoothed out based on the last projections that we've come in. So that's a better feel right there. Right now, our ending fund balance is being predicted at about 15.9 million. As part of the budget presentation earlier, that was the starting fund balance for this upcoming proposed budget season. So does anybody have any questions on page 1?
Can I ask a quick question? Yeah.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
On that investment, who do we invest with and how does that happen, especially given the financial crisis that just happened?
Absolutely. There's a couple of firms that the district has used in the past, GPA as well as Piper Sandler. Piper Sandler's been one of our go-tos for our bond funds. Basically, I went out and I recruited 4 different investment companies to quote out what they could do for me in the investment market within the policies that are out there to safeguard our funds, that I don't go wild and crazy. This time I used Piper Sandler for our operating funds as well as for our bond investments as well.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Another report that you'll find that you haven't seen for, I don't know, about a year now, is the investment of proceeds. Whenever we do invest outside of our normal cash balances, we like to recap out the type of investments that we're putting our money in. I've separated it out so you can see the operating fund investments, which are definitely short-term and will all mature before the end of the year, as well as our bond funds from the issuance here that we did. Staging that out over multiple years as we need those cash reserves to pay for those investments in Bend High and the other projects. Wanted to lay that out for you. So that concludes the presentation for this quarter. Any questions? All right.
Thank
You guys
you.
got enough of numbers in the last meeting. Thank you.
There were quite a few. Thank you so much. Fantastic. We will now move to 11C, which is the sustainability update. I am so excited about this presentation. Joining us will be Jackie Wilson-Mueller, our sustainability and energy specialist.
Great. Thanks. I'm glad you're really excited about it. Good evening and happy spring to you all. I'm happy to be here and tell you a little bit about sustainability as well as where we are, but I also figured a little bit about where we've been because some of you might not know kind of the history for our district, which is actually pretty vast and pretty impressive, I think. So it really started back in 2002. It was hard for me to say, I'm still in the 20s here, with Linda Bo Bonato. She was a Bend Senior High School biology teacher who ended up going half-time and became a resource conservation manager for Bend-LaPine School District. She started the Bend-LaPine Energy Efficiency Program called BLEEP, which was looking at schools reducing their energy consumption and getting kind of awards. So that was the beginning of it. Bo then retired, and the Environmental Center took over kind of the sustainability program for Ben Lapine. They would send out EarthSmart newsletters, talk about efficiency, and essentially just kind of help with sustainability education overall. In 2010, there was a formal first sustainability plan working throughout the natural step with the Environmental Center. That was kind of what catapulted us forward, and it was a large group that worked on that. In 2012, because we didn't have this BLEAP program anymore, we started this We Reduce program, which is looking at waste and energy reduction throughout the school districts. That's when we really started looking at garbage bags, Amy. So it's been a while that I've been looking at garbage bags. It's been pretty fantastic. The program has evolved over time. In 2015, we really started taking teachers on board, and they were functioning as these sustainability advisors, kind of helping to work with their green teams and student voice, kind of like in the schools themselves, which is great. In 2017, a lot of kudos to Ann Berkey, really started working with Senate Bill 1149 funds in getting some money for the schools for larger energy upgrades that we've been doing with LED retrofits, some HVACs, and building automated systems that have been going on, which has been really fantastic. 2018, we started the Strategic Energy Management Program with the Energy Trust of Oregon. We actually have a meeting tomorrow for the kickoff for the year, so we've been involved in that program for a really long time, and it's looking at a lot of kind of low-cost, no-cost ways that we can save electricity through behavioral changes and just simple things like that. In 2019, I saw a need to really look at our older plan and tried to update it a little bit, and then we really tasked a group with the school district to look at our sustainability plan and create a new plan. That plan was adopted in 2020. It was kind of created during that time, and in 2021, it was brought to Superintendent Cook in the school board. So now we have this new 5-year sustainability plan, and that came from a new updated EL7 that says we have to continue sustainability and relook at it over the next 5 years. And so I was brought on in August as a staff member working 0.65 FTEs to measure, monitor, and report on the plan and continue to work on it, which is really exciting. So I'm happy to be on board officially with that. I recently wrapped up in October a school sustainability leader fellowship with the U.S. Green Building Council. So when we hear all this, we're like, wow, we've been doing this for a long time. We have been, but we're really just catapulting it to the next level, I think, and that's what I'll report on a little bit today. The U.S. Green Building Council works essentially with all district sustainability staff throughout the United States, and they estimate that 1% of school districts have a sustainability staff member. That's looking at approximately 200 out of over 13,000 school districts across the United States. So kudos to us. It's pretty fantastic. So with that, we do have this new sustainability plan that was developed in 2020. This is our new kind of 5-year sustainability plan. The mission for our plan is that Ben Lapine Schools will create a culture of sustainability by inspiring students and staff to commit to sustainable action and stewardship in the operation and design of district facilities. My tagline I use when I talk to district staff is essentially we're looking to create a culture of stewardship and conservation through education and action. So with our plan, we have 4 main focus areas that are up there. Within those focus areas, we have 15 goals and various strategies to get to the goals. Within our education goal itself, it's really looking at how are we educating our students and staff? How are we modeling these sustainability actions? How are we working with green teams? How are we really taking action, and how are we communicating that action? With building and operations, we're looking at our new and existing facilities. We're looking at energy and conservation behaviors in the schools, increasing renewable energy, and striving for net zero. Transportation, looking at reducing emissions from our fleet vehicles, as well as educating district visitors. Active transportation options for students that don't have busing, increasing our bus ridership, making the bus cool again, and increasing fuel efficiency. With our materials management program, that's really looking at our recycling and waste management. We create waste. How can we divert as much of it as possible? How can we make sure that our schools have non-toxic chemicals in them, reduce food waste, as well as construction management waste that's going to happen from remodeling and creating new facilities. I don't know if this video will work. Oh, you know how to do this. So I think Karen can speak really more to why sustainability is important from students. I had the pleasure of working with Karen through the Green Leadership Coalition of the Environmental Center, and I also had the pleasure of taking her to Alaska with me on a service project picking up plastics. And she's the senior at Mountain View High School.
Hi, my name is Karen Palayo. I'm a senior over at Mountain View High School, and I believe that the Ben Lapine School District should invest their time and effort into becoming a sustainable district to overall help improve our schools. Our schools hold our future generations. By implementing programs to help our environment, we do one of the most important parts of advocacy. We help raise awareness for the issue. The young minds in our schools are very impressionable. Seeing our schools practicing methods to help maintain our environment will educate our students by leading by example, which will ensure a safer and better future for our youth to be able to do their part and make change. Without doing so, our planet will continue to suffer, therefore our students will as well. It's an investment for our future. Thank you.
Awesome, thank you for that. So really, by moving through sustainability, we are being leaders. We're leading by the examples. We are improving our schools. We're educating our students, and we are investing in this future. So that's why it is important for the students, and then we can see what's even important for our staff and for myself and hopefully everyone else. So what it looks like in the schools, if you don't see it or you're not in the schools firsthand, it's Green Team students, especially in the elementary schools. They're doing little minor waste audits. They're seeing what's going in the garbage cans. They're helping with recycling. Thank you, Dr. Cook. They're trying to inspire others to be Earth heroes is really what they're doing. And this is going from our elementary students all the way up to our high schools. With our building and operation, those pictures there, the lower left is at Juniper Elementary School. Post-breakfast, it's the custodian just turning off lights. Nobody is in this room anymore. I'm going to turn off the lights. So it's those behavior changes. And then it's designing new buildings like Pacific Crest Middle School with all LED lighting so that it's already functioning while using less electricity. Our transportation goals, again, it's how do kids get to school? It's are they walking? It's our partnership with Commute Option on how kids can safely get to school. It's looking at idle-free campaigns for our staff members and for parents and for our bus fleets. For materials management, again, it's creating signage, it's getting waste and recycling facilities next to each other, and it's really looking at different diversion ways for the waste that we do create. Awesome, so current trends, where we are and some of our accomplishments. There will be a report at the end of the year with where we currently are and moving along. So Green Teams and Sustainability Advisors. It's pretty exciting. We have a goal of having 100% participation in our Sustain BLS program by 2025. Currently, we have 75% of our schools involved in this program, and that's elementary all the way up to high school. Our Sustain BLS program is where I give all of the teachers that are these sustainability advisors different programs to work on with their students, and then the Green Team are the leaders. So these Green Teams are this catalyst to educate peers as well as staff, and they're doing presentations in the schools, and they're helping with different initiatives, which is really fantastic. Sustainability education, it's how we are educating about climate change and how we can be stewards and what conservation means. April 19th, we're partnered with COCC for their Climate Teach-In Day, which is really exciting. So we'll have some high school students going up to the college to learn about presenters there and learn about sustainability within our community. We'll be working with science teachers so that they can learn a little bit more about this upcoming Senate Bill 854 about all K through 12 schools having climate education. So we're trying to be really proactive in being ready so that we have a plan in action already for that. The Green Leadership Coalition is how the Environmental Center is supporting us. They're working with high school students from all of our schools that have Green Team leaders so they can be a unified voice. They're working on idle-free campaigns. Recently, a group just worked with Nutrition Services to get Food for Our Future program, which will have a meat-free lunch day on April 21st, which is really exciting, and it was all really based on students. And advocacy is a big thing that they're working on. That's part of it. A group of our students from the Green Leadership Coalition also reached out to Deschutes County Commissioners to try and save Worrell Park. So they're really learning how they can take their voice to the important stewardship behaviors within our community. And there's several different Green Team Earth Day education programs going on this month for Earth Day, which is really great within our schools. Within our building and operations, we have a goal of increasing our renewables to 500 kW by 2035. We are moving along with this. The new 38 kilowatt solar on Joule is a really great start of it. Currently, the solar array has produced 46 megawatts of renewable electricity, which is enough to power 47 homes over a month, or the equivalent offset of planting 560 trees. So all of our schools that do have these renewables are working on that: Miller, Lava, Roslyn, Joule. We're currently looking at our building standards and also how can we put solar on in a fiscally responsible manner, and we're researching different ways to try and increase that to get to our goals for sure. For new buildings, we're really looking at this EUI of buildings. See, it went to target again. It's a target, not a barget, of 25 EUI for our new schools. What EUI is, it's like a miles per gallon efficiency for buildings. You're looking at the entire square footage of the building and all of the electricity consumed. So with our schools, we can really compare kind of our apples to apples with our school buildings and where they are. The average EUI in the United States for schools is 54.8. Our newer schools that came on, Silver Rail, North Star, Caldera, Pacific Crest, when we look at all those schools together, the median EUI, or energy use intensity, is 26.8. So as far as our new schools and the efficiency of them, they're doing really good. And our total portfolio, we're seeing a trend decreasing in that. So even existing schools, when we update LED lighting, interior or exterior, that's what's decreasing the EUI. When we're putting in new HVAC systems, new monitoring system, that's assisting us in decreasing the energy consumption of those buildings. Fantastic. Sustainable transportation. We have a new EV bus. Woohoo. First one, East of the Cascades. We're learning more about it. Students really love it. They love the song it plays. The drivers really like to drive it. It's fun, it's new, it's exciting. But it's also how do we build that support for our school buses. The Love the Bus program has been going on for 2 years in February, just really kind of supporting our school bus drivers and getting kids to see that riding the school bus can be cool again. I haven't ridden a school bus in a long time, so I can only imagine it being fantastic. These idle-free campaigns have been really great with students leading the charge on how we educate. Bend High just got a whole bunch of signs at their schools, and we're really looking at how do we educate the parents with drop-off where it's applicable to just turn off their car. And that's been happening for the last several years in our schools with different newsletters that go out from our administrators. We've hosted both a fall and spring walk and roll to school day in partnership with Commute Options. They've helped create walking routes so that students that are outside of bus routes can actually get safely to school through different routes that they create. Those we're hoping in the fall of 2023 will be easily accessible on our website as well, so we can assist families in that. Materials management, one of my favorite. We probably have seen some have been similar to this in the admin building. This is kind of our new district standard. We're really looking at, as far as schools, it's very easy. We know the majority of what we're recycling is going to be paper products and bottles and cans. So though we can commingle recycle in Deschutes County, in our schools, it's so easy. We just have this kind of 3-bin system, and we're really trying to just kind of streamline this. So we're streamlining it through some waste management guidelines, so all custodial staff, building administrators, and even staff know that this is just how we're trying to reduce our impact via waste management. The Love Food Not Waste campaign is just going on. There's a new video that was created in partnership with Nutrition Services, so we could teach students about our food program, 1, how great it is, 2, what they can take, how they can get their food so that they're not throwing away food. They're taking food to eat and hoping to reduce that waste. And then after a couple of these schools have this campaign, we're increasing some composting. With composting in our schools, it also decreases emission because we're taking that methane out of the atmosphere that's not going to not landfill. So hopefully increasing more composting programs will be exciting. Silverware is being rolled out. Prior to COVID, we had all of our elementary schools using at least silverware. We're building ourselves back up to that and much quicker than anyone would have anticipated, which is really fantastic. And we're also doing boat stacking in 13 of our elementary schools. what is boat stacking? It's not as exciting as you think, but it is talking about garbage bags. So this was, this was one of the images I've used with trying to educate students, because it's a really great thing when our students say, what's the point? It's garbage is garbage. It's a true story. It's garbage. It's all going to the landfill. So in the first image, you've got the stack of boats, right? And so that's them stacked up. And these are all boats that have been used by kids to get their food when they go to get their food program. Those placed in a garbage can take up very little volume. Those haphazardly thrown into a garbage bag, that same stack, don't even fit. So we get charged by volume that just goes into a giant dumpster behind the school, not by weight. So while reducing volume, not only does it reduce the amount of filling of the dumpsters, also reduces the garbage bags. So a typical elementary school can go from anywhere from 8 to 12 bags of garbage per lunch period and reduce that usually in half through boat stacking. Once we introduce composting, that changes it a little bit more. We do have a couple of schools that are using plateware. It's much more complicated for our schools, but there's definitely a lot of push for, well, why are we even using these boats? That's a whole different story, but there's a lot of schools that are looking for that. Currently, Miller and Westside Village are the ones that are using kind of washware with that. The last thing is just some happy kids. The students with the green buckets, there's some Bear Creek students that were so happy to help teach everyone about composting. That just started at Bear Creek. They're one of our community eligibility programs. So they have a lot of food that's being served there, and then a lot of food waste that happens. And so being able to compost there and see it successful is going to be really great. And then that's also another image just of this is what some of our green teams are doing. They're in the cafeterias, helping the custodians, working with their administrators, really trying to just reduce the impact by stacking up these boats and silverware so we can reduce the garbage bags and the volume that we as a district send to the landfill. And with that, any questions?
I just want to share my appreciation for the work. My third grader is a very proud member of his school's green team, and I hear about it all the time. One thing that I feel like you mentioned, but as a parent, maybe I'm missing it in newsletters, or I'm not sure, but is the idling issue. That is something I feel like I don't hear a ton about as a parent. And I wish we did more work around that, because I've heard it from other parents who are concerned about bus pickup, school pickups. And I've definitely seen it at my kids' school. The line is a mile down the road and the cars are all on. So I don't know if we've thought about like signs, like try to reduce idling the way we have like read with your kids, I don't know if we've thought about anything like that.
Yep, and thank you for that. It's a great question, Amy. We have been working on it a little bit, and the hope is I'll send things to administrators of like, oh, put this in newsletters, but it's not this is what we're doing yet. I think it'll come from it's something we're committed to, and most certainly with our buses, they have different programs so they can see what buses are idling more. I find it's more of the parent with the drop-off, and so that's part of the how do we get kids to school where they can be biking safely and walking safely and stopping that lineup that happens. As a parent myself too, Juniper parent, I'm like, I am never gonna go into that front line and drop off my child. I'll stop in like neighborhood areas and park my car and walk with him. But that's just, there's so many just of the busyness that I think happens, which is what makes it harder. So I think it's just us coming up with an idea of like, how long should parents idle? And our schools are so different with where parents are coming from and how they come to and from school. I know at High Lakes Elementary School, prior to COVID, I'd go there and be like, oh my God, this is amazing. The parking lot is completely filled with all these cars. One car is idling, all the rest are parents gathered, because creating that kind of sense of community, I think really helps. And we have the sustainability advisors working on it. So several of our schools have done programs where students have been out and educating and talking to parents and getting them to sign, like I'll stop idling. And it usually works great for like a year, and then it kind of fizzles out. So we're working on it, and definitely in conjunction with the city of Bend and seeing like what we can do to make safe routes for students to walk and bike. Because I think that's from different sustainability studies I've done, parents want to drop off their kids for various reasons, For middle school kids, it's a lot of, they have so many things with them that they're juggling. It's easier for them to drop off. A lot of parents will say it's the time that they spend and talk with their students, so it's an important part of them, and they just don't want them riding the bus. So that's part of where we can say the bus is awesome. Our transportation department is fantastic. Our EV bus is so cool. And just getting more students to ride the bus. And for parents, that will also be, how can you work on collectively even carpooling students or finding a spot to stop and then walk your student that little bit, for that idea of like, you'll get to spend extra time if you walk with them for 5 minutes and be able to park your car, and it will decrease that. So it is something students are super passionate about, I as well as, and we'll be working more on this over time. So you'll be hearing more.
Hey, Jackie, how you doing? It's Marcus. How you doing today?
Hi, Marcus.
Can you hear me okay?
We can hear you okay.
Okay, cool. Quick question. Is there any incentives to encourage or incentivize students, especially high school students, to maybe possibly neighborhood carpool or have bike clubs where students in different neighborhoods ride their bikes together? And then finally, have we ever considered in terms of helping in terms of cost for students with like skateboards and bikes, having repair shops in some of the high schools as a club or something like that that allow the students to be able to engage in a different way?
Those are really great things. I'm taking down some notes. I think our CTE programs could probably connect with some of our local bike shops. There's some really passionate bike mechanics in this community. And it's a really great career option for students. So that's a really great thing. I was just somewhere too that they had a really great bike fixing station. And I know with Bend High, there's the idea of how do we make sure when we're redesigning that building, we have ample bike parking as well as safe skateboard parking. As silly as that seems, is like a place to put their boards. Our partnership with Commute Options is how we really work on getting kids safely to and from school. So that will be really who we're partnering with that to do those aspects of the program.
I just have a couple questions. First, thank you for all this work. It's fantastic kind of hearing it all together, and especially on a timeline of how we've gotten here. The one about the increasing the number of bus riders, which I think is fantastic. I would love to see that. I personally like drive my kids, and I don't really know why, thinking about it. But do we have the capacity to do that? Because I know we went through that period. I don't know, maybe we're still in that period of really struggling to find bus drivers.
We're at actually much higher staffing for bus drivers this past year, than we have been in previous years. We still have the ability to increase ridership, and as ridership increases, we'll continue to do that. Now, we're not seeing near as many challenges in hiring bus drivers in this in the current state. I think it could get to the place where if we outgrew this, our next steps would actually not be bus driver issues, it would be buses. If we've got functional buses, they're out on routes.
Okay, thank you. My second question is, I see that you are doing composting at some of the schools. Who does the composting? Does that go to the landfill, or do the schools do the composting themselves?
That's a really great one. We will not compost on site because that kind of messes up with our integrated pest management plan. You bring a bunch of food waste outside, you're like, oh great, now we have mice in our school. So compost always leaves our school facilities. Deschutes County Solid Waste Landfill has a huge composting facility there. So all of the compost gets put into big 64-yard carts, which are stored outside of the school. The compost goes from bucket to cart, and then the cart gets picked up by our waste haulers and delivered to not landfill, where it then goes through commercial composting. The benefit of commercial composting is because they're doing it at large scale and they have these giant grinders that are constantly stirring and mixing it, we can compost everything. If you were to compost in your yard, we'd be like, only fruits and vegetables, but not really citrus, and it's really complicated with our schools. It's like, if you can eat it, you can put it in there.
Keep going. With the commercial composting, do they also do, they might not have the ability to do it, but how do they label it? The compostable,
Compostable like food
single-use
products.
products?
They can, it just doesn't break down as well here in the high desert ecosystem. And we actually piloted a program, gosh, probably 6 years ago, where we collected the boats that are labeled compostable, and we put a whole bunch of them in with our compost, and they just didn't grind well, and they didn't compost well. And then some of the challenges we have is just contamination, right? Once a little bit of plastic gets in that compost, that never really breaks down. Luckily, it gets ground into such a small component, but it does get into the compost, and I know Deschutes County has a really hard time with trying to sort those out. And once you have a cup that you're like, well, this one's compostable, and then another plastic cup, you're like, but this one isn't. But they look so similar. So Deschutes County is saying, please no compostable materials besides food. And when food goes into the compost, it's being mixed with the yard debris, which isn't quite a lot in this community as well. And so what's great is by increasing our food composting, we're also building a better compost product, that they're really looking for the nutritional value that goes in from adding a little bit more nitrogen and phosphorus from the food waste.
Yeah, all right, thank you.
Shamiko had some of my questions about compost, so thanks for. But yeah, this has been an amazing presentation, and I'm wondering what are obstacles that are preventing you from reaching that 100% involvement from all schools?
From all schools, that's a really great one. I think part of it is for any of our teaching staff or staff in general, it's that time and that commitment. Students can be really passionate about it, but they need to have some sort of adult leader. So what's holding us back is some of these schools that just don't have that leader that feels like they have the time and the capacity. So we do have kind of this way that the teachers are getting compensated for their time, which has been increased, and it went from nothing to like steadily increasing, which is really good, but it's just the time to actually do the work. And I think that's what's really holding some folks back.
Yeah, one idea that I was thinking about was kind of having a like Ben Lapine School volunteer bank. So if you're seeing a ton of volunteers at High Lakes, but maybe you need more volunteers at Lava Ridge or something, to kind of disperse those hands, right? Because we are the same district. But I also am wondering if you had mentioned about the breaking down of paper, right, in the compost. Do you know if there's any incentive from the county, to, I guess, increase the ability to do that? Because I'm thinking about the zero goal, right? And how is that actually obtainable if we don't have the material? Yeah.
Right, and I think things are shifting and changing slowly there's a new bill coming down to make at least Oregon recycling consistent and increasing the materials that we can recycle. Again, anything you recycle, if it's not a commodity, meaning if this piece of paper, I can't turn it into anything, it's useless. No recycler wants it. So we're hoping by 2025 to increase some of the recycling. To say milk cartons would be one thing that might be coming down. In some counties in Oregon, in Portland, they can recycle the TerraPaks. You get like soy milk containers in. We can't do that here in Deschutes County. And currently, all of our recycling gets shipped up to Portland to a material recycling facility there. We don't have any local recycling resources here in Deschutes County. There's a new executive director coming on to Deschutes County Solid Waste who's really passionate about waste reduction. And I think we'll start seeing some more open ideas to decreasing our waste streams. And even our schools, they've been doing Trex recycling, which is that plastic decking. And so it's schools actually collecting the plastic film that we can't recycle here. So there's many schools that are working on that. And currently I know Deschutes Brewery is recycling all of the plastic that comes from their pallets when they're getting like shipping off big kegs and things like that. And so I'm currently looking into, can we do that at our warehouse? Can we start saving that plastic and ship it to Deschutes Brewing, and then they'll ship it to Far West Recycling? So it's looking at those different places that can recycle, which will get us there. And even just those consistent way stations at Caldera High School, when that school opened, it opened with this idea of we're just doing this from the get-go. And it's made a huge difference at that larger school. We're gonna start seeing at least our diversion rates going up at all of our schools.
Great, thank you.
You're very welcome.
Thank you very much. And since we did hear from students earlier, I do want to call attention to 2019 and that climate resolution and remind our community that the climate resolution came to the board from students. And it was student speakers. I think it was one of the first things that Shumiko, Amy, and I voted on. But we got asked about it on the campaign trail, but just that advocacy of our students really leads to great work, and thank you for everything you've done to spearhead this work. Previously as a consultant, but now you're, or not as a partnership, but now as part of us. Thank you.
Thank you all very much.
We will now move to item 11D, which is instructional practices and professional development. And Kinsey Martin, Executive Director of Policy, Advocacy, and Equity, will be leading us.
Oh, it's warmer. All right. I'm Kinsey Martin, and I'm excited to connect with you all about this topic, or I would say a very narrow slice within this topic. Instructional practices and professional development, obviously, in our organization is a big part of what we do as the adults in public education. So we're definitely zooming into a pretty specific portion of our professional development and instructional practices. And even within the Office of DEI, we support classified staff professional learning and administrator professional learning and certified teachers and staff in several different ways. So tonight's conversation is a pretty specific portion of that work, but I think pretty important. And we have a great team here to share some examples with you. So, all right. So I wanted to just jump in with a little bit of background before the team shares their work with you tonight. LEAD is a group that we've had in existence for 3 years now. It is an acronym that stands for Leading for Equity and Anti-Racist Dialogue. And most of you probably remember, but just a little bit of the history and the why for having this group of teacher leaders. A few years ago, the board at the time put out an executive limitation 13 around anti-racism, pretty powerful, expectation for our system, and one that pretty quickly became apparent that we really needed to grapple with as far as what that means to us and how to take it from that executive limitation level into classrooms, which was a pretty long journey as far as thinking about what does that look like and sound like, and how do we do that with integrity and in partnership with our community. And so and the other piece, a few years ago, our last round of listening sessions, our Excellence and Equity process, when we pulled over 30 groups of students and families and heard from them loud and clear that we're not talking about issues that impact them, and if we are, we're not quite going about it in the right way. And so with both of those were the main reasons that the LEAD cohort emerged in our district. It is a group of teacher leaders whose focus is really, like I said, helping us take that charge of being explicitly anti-racist and equity-focused in our work in public education, and figure out what does it actually look like and sound like in our classrooms to have those conversations with 5-year-olds in kindergarten, with high school students in chemistry and everything in between. How do we actually go about that? How do we know if we're doing it well? How do we do that without creating further harm? And maybe the biggest challenge, how do we do that productively in our community and more broadly than Bend or Central Oregon in our country, where adults are struggling with that every day? And so how do we engage in tough conversations together in a productive and respectful but way, but, you know, moving our conversations forward and keeping our priority populations at the center of that work. So, so that's all they do. No small charge, I would say. And it was really important to us from the very beginning that this is teacher leadership, because we know that that you know, school culture and our system culture really starts and ends in the classroom with students, and it's student experience every day where they spend the majority of their time that is our biggest lever for making a change. And so not that our district leadership and our school leadership and, you know, and everyone on our team, both instructionally and operations-wise, doesn't have a part in the work, but we do know that teachers know best what this looks like and sounds like, and where they've fumbled it in the past, and what support they need, and where they need us as a system to step up around them, and how to make space for this work. And so from the beginning, it has been a group of teacher leaders designing this work by teachers for teachers. Not that we don't support principals, administrators, and lots of other folks, but that's been the focus. And a secondary component of this is teacher leadership development and creating more pathways and opportunities for our amazing teachers to step up and be leaders for their colleagues, and try on some of that work of leadership, and people doing awesome stuff in their classrooms, and just trying to make space for lots of different voices in the work, because this isn't, you know, any one person's work to do, it's everybody's. And so the lead cohort, that is the work that they do. As far as over time, how it's shifted, we started, the very first cohort was entirely extra, like timesheet, extra pay in the evenings, and, you know, in their free time, which teachers don't have much of. And it was a group of really dedicated folks who committed to 2 years of digging in and helping us lead this work. And they laid a really, really strong foundation as far as some resources, some strategies, some issue spotting that we knew we needed to be addressing. And so that very first cohort really set a solid foundation. Beginning this year, we have moved from that solely a you know, timesheet extra pay model to having some people who have this built into their job, built into their contract day. That's this team, amazing team of coaches who leads the work of lead. You know, and we partner as a team to keep moving the work forward, and thinking about how to support teachers. And we still have reps in different representatives in different buildings who support us at each building level, because we know relationships are really key in this work too. And so, you know, it's hard to come in as someone who doesn't work in a building and have the same level of relationship, trust, knowledge about the details of a particular building or school culture. And so there are a team of building-based representatives who are key to the work too still, and will continue. So that's the point we're at currently. We've moved from that extra pay to having some TOSA, teacher on special assignment, leadership of the work, and I'll talk later about sort of some next steps there. But I want to also point out that this work relates, I think, to all of the board goals and priorities. And I mean, you think about academic foundation, there are standards in language arts and in language proficiency, and a variety of our ethnic studies standards that require that students are able to grapple with tough conversation and disagree with one another in a productive way, and use their language skills and their reasoning skills across subject areas. So this work supports our academic foundation goal. The passion, purpose, and plan, you know, until we activate that passion in a kid for something that just lights their fire, it's, you know, it's hard for them to develop a plan and a purpose. And so I think I can't find a youth yet who doesn't get fired up about a social justice topic, whatever their viewpoint is on it. And so this certainly helps kids find their passions and develop those when we're doing this work well. And then, you know, wellness, inclusion, belonging. Obviously, we talk a lot about student voice. And again, that work needs to start in the classroom. Kids need to know that their voice matters in classroom conversations and in learning that they're doing. And so all of this work helps, you know, connect all of those goals and helps teachers implement that on a daily basis. And so the team is going to share with you what they do in a day in and day out basis. I mean, it's a lot of different things, and so they're going to share just some highlights. And in no way could we tonight capture everything they do. So you're just going to get some snippets of highlights maybe of the work that they do, and we'd encourage you to connect and talk more with the team if you're interested in hearing more about something tonight or other things that we couldn't squeeze into to the presentation tonight. So with that, I will switch it to Amy, I think is.
Hi, good evening. My name is Amy Zepniewski. And along with this lead TOSA position, I teach Japanese to 6th, 7th, and 8th graders at Pacific Crest Middle School. I'm also the web coordinator for our web, which is Where Everybody Belongs group. And I've been a teacher in our district for 21 years. One area, and I'll just talk about some of the pictures. So the pictures are of my classroom. The top one, we had an exchange student and teacher from Japan visit us this fall. And so all of my classes got to experience that moment and practice their Japanese. The picture below that is me teaching kind of a lesson in my intro classes about belonging and using Dr. Seuss in various different ways as a springboard for that lesson and reading to the students the Sneetches. And then on the right-hand side, we had our last month, our Black History Month door decoration, which my web leaders actually created this and designed the door. And we were just a little bit late in getting it done because we wanted to make sure we included all the students' work in there. Okay, so one area of work we do as a team of coaches is develop and support lesson materials for teachers and administrators to use so that they have the strategies and support to feel comfortable and prepared to talk about the tough stuff in our classrooms. We also go in and co-teach or co-plan with teachers to ensure that they're supported in implementing the lessons. Finally, we provide resources for all parties involved in particular bias incidents, including immediate support for the persons targeted, family engagement, education for the offender, repair or restorative practices, and related follow-up PD for administrators and staff. One example of this work that I've been working on is my presence in assisting our administration in bias incidents at our school. I have supported our students and families as they navigate these bias incidents, and I've also facilitated restorative circles at both the high school and middle school levels. Other examples I won't go into tonight that we do as lead coaches are follow-up lessons on stereotypes, co-teaching to support ethnic studies standards, and how to utilize our lead district website strategies. We'd be happy to talk more about these, and then there are time if you have any questions, I'm happy to answer those. No questions? I'll pass it on. Next slide. Thank you. Oh, it's my job. I'm sorry. It's late. Okay. Wait, just the arrow.
Sorry, we created this a little while ago, so it's kind of, I can remember exactly how the slides are. But thank you guys for offering the time to hear us out and, me working with these wonderful humans over here. My name is Brian Gonzalez. I think I've spoken to you guys before. I teach currently 5th grade in the dual immersion program at Bear Creek Elementary. I have been a teacher in the Ben Lompoc School District since 2019, and I have been involved with LEAD and Kinsey as a teacher at large, kind of like what Kinsey mentioned at the beginning. And then this year I got more involved with being part of the LEAD and TOSA and getting more involved with the school district because I think I've mentioned it in my previous conversation with you guys. I went through the school district here in Bend. I grew up here in Bend. I went to High Lakes Elementary, Cascade Middle School, and then my family moved away. But anyway, so that is why I'm passionate of helping students and just helping the community I work with, especially at Bear Creek, where the DI program currently exists. As Amy mentioned, a lot of the work that we do is with facilitating conversations. One of the things that I try to do with everything that I do, and I'll talk about the slide in just a little bit, One of the things that I focus on is making it easier for the teacher, in no matter what we do, because the last thing any of us want is to add an extra thing for XYZ teacher to do on top of everything we already do, which is why we focus a lot on communication, a lot on co-teaching, co-planning, and just facilitating whatever it is for that teacher, for that principal, for the family. On the slide, it kind of gives you an idea of like the 3 big things that we have accomplished thus far. The latest one under examples says the dress code, which is geared towards more of our high schools, but it's about addressing the different types of dress codes, or the different types of things that happen underneath the dress code. Like, for example, in the pictures, everything from shoes all the way down to a suit and tie and what looks to be a black bikini, maybe one piece. But point is that the lesson is a mini lesson that is geared towards not only educating the teacher, but also the students about like, hey, you are here, you are valued, we hear you, we listen to you, and we're gonna work with you to make you feel comfortable in a school setting so that way we can all move forward in our learning environments. Because I'm sure you guys have looked at data in the past when the dress code was implemented as it was targeting a lot of our female students disproportionately, so that is one of the things that we addressed. The second one was the anti-bias lessons that we premiered or published, I guess would be the right term, in September. And we have followed it up with one-pagers, for example, full of resources and links that teachers can just click to, and it gives you a bunch of resources that they can access to readily. And then the last one is Don't Say Gay. It's supposed to say Don't Say Gay mini lesson. I guess I forgot to add the little extra part. But that was a lesson that was that we were reached by teachers from South County and Rossland and La Pine Elementary about just kids going, like the older grade kids, like 4th and 5th graders. And even some students, just kids going around saying the word, "That's so gay." So one of the things that we created was another kind of like mini lesson about not only the history of just the word gay itself, but also how it can be used as a derogatory phrase or a slur, and just like basically educating, because a lot of the foundations or a lot of things that we do is about educating, not just going right into punishment, but also just teaching everybody about right and wrong and just like the background of things. And then just moving forward, we are hoping to continue with the bias lessons, and then expand it further with not only the lead cohort at large that Kenzie talked about at the beginning, but also in expanding it with not just one teacher in one school, but perhaps more, because at the end of the day, whatever we do is a team effort and it's a collective effort. So that's all I'm gonna say. Thank you.
Sorry, got it. All right. I'm back. So Coop, High Desert Middle School, I'm a health teacher by trade. This is my first year with LEAD, and the picture you're seeing is it piggybacks really well with my day job of being a health teacher. While the Menstrual Dignity Act and the education that goes with it does not fall into the health curriculum, my work as a GSA advisor and my work in the health classroom has led it to be a natural topic for me to be pretty passionate about. So last February, we partnered with the Kids Center to provide some PD as an option for our elementary staff. And the Kids Center introduced Child and Teen Safety Matters as a curriculum that we're using to meet the needs of Aaron's Law, which is around sex abuse prevention. And at the same PD, we provided some information around the Menstrual Dignity Act and where we're at in the implementation, answered questions. As you heard earlier, there's still some things that we need to finish up as a district. And one of the things I'm happy to be able to say is with some increased capacity with LEAD, we're hopeful that we'll be able to address the education component of the Menstrual Dignity Act, or at least begin to. It is, when you look at the number of buildings that we have in our district, that's a large lift, trying to get into every building and provide that kind of education for staff members, for students, for families. So hopefully we'll be able to get that started in a little bit bigger function next year. Also, one that I wanted to highlight is a middle school reached out to the team earlier this year. They were having some bias incidents, and we're trying to look at a school-wide education piece. And they asked if we could help them with a lesson for their advisory structure. We met with a team of their teachers and quickly developed a set of lessons. We went to 3 advisory lessons, and with those provided PD. And it was a 2-day structure. We went in on one day, walked the advisory teachers through the lesson, and then the next day came in and just offered a drop-in space where they could come in and ask questions further up about the, digging in more specific with how they were going to do it in their classroom. And that drop-in space provided a little bit safer, smaller area for staff to ask questions. Along with that, so we did that for 3 lessons, so that involved 3 of those dual PD sets. And then we also offered to go into classrooms for the advisors to help, be with them side by side and not teach the lesson, not co-teach the lesson, but just be there and help provide that feedback on what they were doing. Was able to drop into 2 classrooms for that, and it was super rewarding. It was great being in a different school than my own and working with different teachers and helping build that increased synergy for the work that we do. Those are just a couple examples. They're kind of big, working at the school system level and moving into the classroom level and how quickly that can happen. These are all things that we need to continue doing. As Kinsey mentioned, these are very difficult and sensitive conversations for a lot of people to have, and that is something that this team is very happy to be able to support all of our colleagues in.
Hi, I'm Laura Swales. I'm a 4th grade teacher at North Star Elementary. I've been involved with the district lead project here for the last 3 years, and this is my first year as an instructional coach. I do elementary with Brian. Another example of ways that we support our whole district, as Kinsey had mentioned, we have lead cohort members in all of our schools. So we thought it would be great that each school would have one of us as their direct contact support members. So I had the privilege this year from Pine Ridge Elementary. One of my, the lead cohort member there was asked to do a gender support protocol team meeting, and she was really excited to do the work, but admittedly, she's like, I've never done this before. Can you support me so that I feel confident and I feel prepared to lead my principal and my counselor and a student and their family through this important protocol. So I said, of course, that'll be great. I've been through a few myself helping support that. And so I said, these are really common questions or concerns that families will have. And so I was just able to really walk through that whole protocol with her, and she felt much more confident going into that. And then I've just been in touch with her over this last year in our work together, and she even shared, hey, I actually got to do a second protocol meeting, so I feel much more prepared now, and if anyone else wants some support with that across the district, she just feels much better about that. And I actually asked her if she could share a quote with about that experience with you specifically. And so she said, your support and correspondence was vital in ensuring families were given all of the information and resources and support for their child. It gave me the confidence to lead families and the support team through the gender support team protocol. Most importantly, I want to share how impactful the gender support protocol has been for families. I now have led 2 gender support team meetings. The feedback that I have received both from families is how grateful that they are that our district is firmly supporting their child, reaching out to initiate support meetings, scheduling follow-ups and check-ins, ensuring that they are aware of their child's rights, and addressing bias incidents seriously. In my experience, parents are truly scared of the hate that their child might experience at school, and having their school, which includes their child's teacher, principal, counselor, and the lead cohort member that also is a member of that school, reach out to them and to support them has clearly created a sense of community and belonging for those families. So thank you. I just wanted to share that example because I feel like our coaching work really helps support this one particular teacher, but also a team really at this school to wrap around that child and that family. And so I feel like our work really directly impacts that child too. Thank you.
Okay, so as I mentioned, that's just a very small snippet of the work that they do, and hopefully, at least what comes to mind for me as I think about all of those solidarity that teachers and principals aren't alone in trying to navigate these issues, and capacity building, because it's not about having 4 experts who can go out and solve the things. It's about supporting our whole system at getting better together. And so, I mean, you heard they have helped articulate some strategies for classroom climate, co-planning with teachers, co-teaching, providing staff meeting, professional development, bias response at the individual support level and at the system sort of educational level. And I think most importantly, hopefully you hear that they're doing the work themselves in their classrooms. This isn't a, these 4 telling other people what to do. They are having these conversations themselves with students and with colleagues, and are very intimately aware of the difficulties of these conversations in our community. And so it really is an awesome team working on just helping all of us get better at the work. As far as looking ahead, we are excited to do more of everything they just said. No significant shift in what the team's going to be doing because we haven't arrived with the work, and so we know we've got a lot more to do. We are increasing the positions to 0.5, so we've moved in 3 years from having some extra, all sort of outside of contract hours, time-sheeted team members to having each of these folks with a fairly small portion of their day dedicated to this, to having 4 half-time coaches who can really have a solid block of their day dedicated to this without losing that anchor in their own classroom practice. And then we're one thing that, in addition to, in particular, continuing bias incident response and educational tools and approaches, some conversation around community conversations, knowing that we're really working hard with students to get students engaging in conversations around stuff that might make them uncomfortable, that might make the adults in the classroom uncomfortable, and trying to do that productively and respectfully, in partnership with our community. But we've been trying to engage our families through family communications when we're before the bias incident lesson this fall, before the dress code lesson that's heading out to schools right now. We do have a family communication to ask families to be involved and to have the conversations alongside us, and talk about family values at home and how that intersects with school values. And so, not that this work has been disconnected from that, but we also know we really want to engage our community in some adult conversations around tough stuff. And so I'm looking forward to, I sort of planted some seeds with the team at our last meeting about some possibilities for those adult conversations and what that could look like. And that relates to our last conversation last time around, when we were calling parents in response to a bias incident and engaging our community in that educational approach for why what happened is so significant, for example, knowing that we can't be having those conversations at the individual level each time an issue happens. We need to have some community conversations around these topics. And so, a lot of our partners are doing that work already too, so I don't mean to say that nothing, exists out in our community, but we want to do our part as a system too in having those conversations. And then, like you heard, continuing to take policy and help put it into practice and bring it to life in the classroom. So the dress code policy, helping bring those changes to our schools, helping people, staff in particular, sort of chew through what does this mean? How do we need to change our practices and how we are identifying students who have dress code violations, and what do those conversations sound like? What is a dress code violation anymore? And how do we make sure that we're all on the same page and that students aren't surprised and families aren't surprised? And so this team's been really helpful in taking those, as we're shifting our policies, then how does that impact classroom teachers and school communities? So continuing lots more of that work. Okay, I think we didn't put a questions piece at the end, but I'm happy to answer any questions if you have anything for the team.
I'm a teacher at X school, and there's some things happening in my classroom that I'm not really comfortable with. How do I know who to go to get that kind of support that you're offering?
I'll jump in if you want to add anything. So a few different ways. We have really worked with our principals to understand what this team can offer. And so typically a teacher might talk to their principal, and the principal would then know, oh, hey, let's reach out to this team. We've also shared a flyer. The picture of the 4 of them that you saw on an earlier slide comes from a flyer that we distributed that has a QR code. Reach out to us, and there's a QR code that goes straight to all 4 of the team. And then we've also just shared their names and emails, and they've done several, staff meeting presentations and district-wide professional development series and opportunities just to, get some face time with staff too. So kind of a variety of ways. Anything you'd add to?
Yes. As Laura mentioned, one of the things that we did is that we took all the schools in the school district and we divided them in like sections basically. So like, for example, me and Laura took the elementary schools, and I took half and she took half, and we directly reached out to teachers in that school and asked them to either be lead cohort members at large or just be our point of contact for that school. So if you were at Rossland Elementary in South County and something happened at your school, and you or a friend of yours, a colleague in that school is your lead point of contact, then you can go to that person and that person can email us directly about like, hey, this happening in my school. Can you help us? And that is one of the ways that we have made ourselves available to them. And Amy and Coop have done the same thing with the middle schools and the high schools. So each of us have a portion of the schools that are our schools that we kind of like take care of, if that makes sense.
Thank you.
I just have a question about logistics. What do you mean it's built into their contracts? Because I'm taking it they're full-time in the classroom?
They have a portion of their day right now. It's a very small portion, like 0.33 of their day that is dedicated to this work. So technically it is part of, they are almost full-time classroom teachers, and a very small part of their day dedicated to, so like at the secondary level, that means a class period, for example, or ish. It doesn't, mathematically work out perfectly, but about a class period worth of time dedicated to this work right now, which is, is a step into this. And we realized very quickly, maybe not, maybe we needed to make that more realistic, so.
What about the elementary?
Elementary is mostly through, they have a consistent identified sub that comes and releases them once, maybe a couple times a month for the work. So plus kind of additional ad hoc stuff as well. So this will sort of significantly minimize sub-release time for them, and those sort of awkward chunks of time where there's been several times where a school has wanted them to come out and they're teaching. And so this won't be solved in that way, but it will make a solid half of their day across the 4 of them that they are available. So.
I have a couple questions. The first one is, have y'all received any pushback in this work? Can you? So kind of, I guess to go hand in hand with that, do y'all have any well-being resources for yourselves? I mean, obviously you're teachers. That's a lot already on its own, and then to throw this on top of that. So I'll stop with those two questions.
Can I just say real fast? I'll say yes. So all of us, the five of us actually, I think we share a lot and we work with each other for support, and students. So I know, like last time I shared, I got teary-eyed because it's the students that bring us here to do this work. And even though it's a little bit of time, it's knowing that we're supporting the students. So I would say that's what is my help, that I know that whatever I'm doing is helping a student, a family, or hopefully more, but it's definitely student-centered for me and the support that I get from my team.
So I'm going to step in here in just a little bit. It's kind of a piggyback idea on that. This is not something that is lead specific, but does come through Kinsey's office. For example, we have started what's called BLS Alliance, and it's a community partnership that's meeting once a month to provide support for our families. And having that happen, it's allowed me, I'm part of being, again, it's not part of LEAD, but it's got me connected to a space where we're starting to see some family support, some community support. Our meeting this last month at BLS Alliance, we had a mental health provider come in and connect with families, and just seeing that cathartic moment, and it was huge. So for me, the work is part of the wellness. The work is how we address the resistance and the experiences that many of us have carried through our world for a very long time. And so that hope that we are bringing, just for me as an end of my career teacher, I have been in the district now for a time. I am an old man, and I see my exit ramp a lot closer than the on-ramp. And to have these systems starting to happen, so it's not that Coop's been running a GSA at High Desert for a number of years. That system will be in place through these conversations, that when I step away, I know my students and families are going to continue to be supported. So that's part of my wellness.
We've talked a lot as a cohort, and then as a district team too, about does it make sense to have these teeny chunks of 4 people, even halftime chunks of 4 people? Is that the right model? And that is a very intentional decision, because early on in our year 1 of our LEAD cohort, there was a lot of fear, and I'm not sure the resistance has decreased or changed much, but the do we have one equity TOSA, the pressure on that person, the difficulties that model would, while there's some benefits as far as like a full-time person has a lot more flexibility and isn't in the classroom, so they can be lots more places. We actually talked several times as a cohort over the last 3 years about, to borrow the wonderful Bell Hooks language, around community of resistance and the importance of knowing you're not alone in the work. And so the team aspect, to Amy's point and Coop's point, is very intentional in why there are 4 halftime instead of 2 full-time, for example. So.
And I guess the last question that I have, because I'm a huge fan of the Alliance meetings, and to see, educators and parents and students all in the same place is amazing. And also, because I'm a data dork, are you all tracking, the number of folks who you're impacting, and what does that look like?
Yes, the team has kind of a spreadsheet where they're putting staff meetings and time towards. Some of that was just as we got a sense of like this stage of the model with like 0.33 and these, sub-release model, just getting a sense of like how many hours of subplans are you writing in this model? How much are you able to get out to staff meetings versus how much is, so very much as far as just work being done as a data point. I would say just another data point, actually, we partnered with the association leadership with BEA and put out a survey just on how was the bias incident lesson for certified staff, and what support did you need? What of the support available did you access? To try to get a sense of how many people felt like they knew about the lead coaches and they knew about the building-based lead reps. And so we have some data in that way that is all obviously the demand for their support is at this point at least more significant than the time they have to provide it. But yeah, definitely more work to do as far as experience of teachers and that support.
I just want to offer an appreciation for the work that you're doing, because I know how hard it is, especially when it is a culture shift, right? We all grew up in schools where people did not talk about their gender identity. I didn't know until after high school that one of my best friends, who was always at my house, actually two of my best friends were both gay. They didn't feel in high school like they could tell me that, and I grew up in a small conservative town where that was not something that they ever could have talked about with me. And from my work in primary care and working with adolescents, the amount of mental health burden that students who identify outside of dominant culture and dominant identity experience is absolutely something we need to be working to reduce in our schools, especially if we hope to meet board goals of inclusion, wellness, and belonging. So thank you so much for being leaders in this work. You are actually saving lives, and we should reward you for that.
All right, thank you so much. And please take them up on the offer to visit and chat and check out some of their PD opportunities and more. So.
Great. Thank you so much. All right. One last item. Policy work, everybody's favorite, guardrails. We're going to move to item number 12A, review of board executive limitations with Superintendent Cook.
Thank you, Chair Barnes-Delakia. This is actually a big day for us. If you recall, we have 13 executive limitations that are currently approved by the board and if you recall, the purpose of the executive limitations in Carver's model of policy governance is to establish the guardrails in which the superintendent and the administrative team are to function. They're written intentionally in a kind of double negative fashion because it's by using that fashion of writing and saying things like the superintendent shall not fail to put forth conditions or situations in which people function in an ethical manner, something like that. It provides flexibility and doesn't bind as tight as policy does. And so what you have before you is our first draft attempt at restructuring the executive limitations, the 13 executive limitations that we built all of our, all of our systems off of last year, and intentionally align them to the board goals. And this was a lift. This was a job. There's several things I want to point out. The first thing before I even start is that some things got deleted. Some things are no longer present. I'll tell you the three things that first come to mind is that the first two ELs no longer exist because those ELs are actually, and this is all about everything that was removed because it was redundant in some fashion. The first two ELs exist in my contract, and I am by contract expected to deliver upon those. And then the one that I think is the biggest interest is EL 13, the most recently adopted executive limitation, was eliminated by incorporation into all of the ELs in existence. That's the first thing I want to pose. The second thing before we go into each one is we've completely restructured the ELs so that their alignment is specific to the board, the expectations of the board goals and ends. And you'll see that alignment very specifically as you read through these. The third one that I want to draw attention to is the fact that we've restructured the presentation style of each of the executive limitations so that the accompanying legal references for each of the ELs is captured on the form and the accompanying policies. Now that part's a work in progress. We have over 400 policies, and so there are some that are not complete yet, but we feel like we've captured the majority of the most pertinent ones in this first draft. And so I'd like to take just a little bit of time, and I'll go through these fairly quickly, to give you at least a direction on the alignment. And you have in front of you a draft form of this. Oh, and the fourth thing is, because EL 13 was one that was quite significantly important to the board and the purpose, everywhere that we incorporated EL 13 in these new proposed ELs is highlighted in green highlight. And what you'll find as you review all of these is that there's not anything missing from EL 13 as we've integrated it into the new ELs. And so, oh, and Janet clarified with me that it is captured verbatim. Not saying that it needs to stay that way. There's big draft watermarks on every single one of these, but we've given what we feel like is a good starting point for the board's consideration. Okay, so just a brief overview of EL, we'll just start it, and their alignment with the goals. So EL 1.1, this numbering system now aligns them to the goals and gives ability for them to have sub-goals or sub-ELs or whatever you want to call it as they go. EL 1.1 is now instructional programs. This used to be EL 8, or currently is EL 8, I should say. EL 2.1, student success planning, incorporates EL 3 in our current model. EL 3.1, treatment of students, parents and guardians, families, and the public. That also incorporates parts of current EL 3. Now, it gets tricky because EL 4, goal 4 has lots of sub-goals, and so we've aligned the sub-goals to their individual executive limitations. So, for example, EL 4.1, legally required policies, which is now currently EL 12. EL 4.2, still a fourth goal, that's where the 4 comes from. 4.2, compensation, development, evaluation, and treatment of employees. That is incorporating and blending together both EL 4, EL 5, and EL 6 in our current model. EL 4.3, financial planning and administration, used to be EL 10, or is currently EL 10, excuse me, I'm gonna keep messing that up. EL 4.4, newly proposed 4.4, facilities, is now currently EL 7, where we heard a report on sustainability tonight. That's where that would live. EL 4.5, student transportation, this is a new EL, incorporates EL 11 in this. EL 4.6, child nutrition, is also a new EL. EL 4.7, information technology, incorporates current version EL 9 and EL 11. EL 4.8, district communication, is a new EL, which also includes pieces from EL 3 and EL 4. EL 4.9 is district safety. It's also a new EL, incorporating pieces of EL 3 and EL 4. I feel like there's one more thing no, I think that might be it. EL 1 and 2, as I mentioned earlier, those are the current versions of those don't exist anymore in this proposal. I know what it was. EL 13 we incorporated, and any place that there were redundancies we removed. And I think the last thing I would point out is that in the new ELs, we kept the language fairly broad because the intention of executive limitation is to live at pretty high level. By cross-referencing policy and legal language for legal references, the language is not as broad as it seems because we are still bound by the legal aspects of those specific things, and we're bound by policy. And so the inclination might be, and we talked about this actually quite a bit, we should expand these. Well, we've already got that expansion in place either in policy or in legal reference, and those are called out on each one of those. And so I think this is a really great place for us to hand it off to you all and start to give us some thoughts, give us some feedback. I don't think it's ready for prime time. I think it needs more polish before we could push it out to the public for feedback. But I think we feel like it's in a place where it's prepared for you all to take it on. After all, this is one of the foundational principles of policy governance and would be a guiding document that the board must own and approve. So glad to answer questions. And I will tell you, the number of people that have edits on these documents cannot be counted on all my fingers and all my toes.
So mine is a very specific question, because I believe, and I might be wrong, that in one of our ELs, we had specifically called out, like, the superintendent shall not fail to message about safe gun storage. And that's not in here, which is fine, because we're making them broader. Is that in a policy somewhere talking about messaging about firearms to our families?
I do not believe that it is. And so whether we want, like, there would be multiple options. The board could have policy that claims that that's an expectation. We could add it into an EL. We could add it into administrative policy. All those things are options. Or the board could do something else that the board would choose. But yes, if there are things that aren't in existence, that's what this is kind of the kicking off point for. What would we like to incorporate so that it's captured in some mechanism or another? And I think what we've attempted to do with this is to say at such a high level that my advice, if that's something that this board is inclined to do, is that we would, rather than put it into the EL, that we would build policy that lives under it.
Is it not in a board policy?
I think we should look.
I just looked it up.
thought it was in one of the policies.
JFC-BP.
I think Julianne is in the back trying to say it somewhere.
I think it's in a proclamation that the board.
Yeah, no, I remember we had a proclamation, but I also, for some reason, thought we had written it into an EL a couple of years ago, but you're not sure.
We would have knew a policy.
Let's use our mics. And what did you find, Shamiko?
It's the board policy is named Weapon in Schools. I haven't read it.
I'm going to suggest that we table this conversation right now, but it's something that we should look at. All right. My question is really what, and I know that Dr. Nordquist did a ton of work on this. How do you want feedback on these?
I think that the easiest way for us to do feedback is to have, we have this both hard copy and we have this electronically. And I think if board members are interested in doing kind of an electronical edit and commenting and asking questions, we could transfer all of this out of a Word document into a Google Doc and build a kind of a working document that has places for everybody to provide comments, suggested edits. I'm guessing we would present it to you all in, what's that form? Not where you can comment but not edit on, so we don't change.
Suggesting mode.
Suggestion mode, yeah. So that we can capture everybody's comments without changing the language that exists in the document.
Great. I will say that I think that sounds perfect. I would say that looking at the documents, I wanted to just name a couple things for my fellow board members. One, there needs to be consistency in language. And I take ownership for it because I wrote EL 13. But we go back and forth between how we talk about historically underserved or historically and currently or marginalized. We just need to pick our language and use it consistently. So that was one thing I noticed. One thing that I'd actually be interested from you, Superintendent Cook, is on EL2. I felt like EL2 still reads a little bit like college is the goal in our Passion Purpose Plan, and I would be interested from you and from Stephen Duval about whether, if there's adjustments we might want to make in terms of all the pathway work that we're doing. And then the third thing is that in some of our ELs, but not all of them, there's kind of there's a bullet on how it will continue to be evaluate, or maybe it was more on that constant, some of them speak to continually reviewing and improving, and some of them don't. And so I don't know if we want to just have that as an overarching thing, or if we want to make sure that it's in all of them.
So similar to consistency in language, I'm wondering if there's space to actually define some of these terms. You know, things like anti-racist, what does that actually mean? But yeah, just having a defining page, I guess.
Are there other comments or questions at this time?
So can I just jump in and add that we have found the resolution was 1892, was the safe gun storage. We'll have to look and dig into policy, but I don't believe that it exists in policy. That was one of the first conversations I had here with a particular communication early on with one of our constituents, a former board member actually pointed that out. And so that's something we can, that's a sidebar that can be remedied quite easily.
All right. Well, then we will look forward to a working document where we can go in. I know I had just a couple small ones, but I really appreciate all of this work. And I do want to call out Dr. Nordquist because I looked at their drafts probably 3 or 4 months ago. And from there to here is huge. And I know it's taken a lot of work. We'll now move to board comments. I will start with Director Olson.
Hi, I would just like to mention the new South County Coalition that has been formed as a partnership with several agencies to provide continuing support to our students down in South County. And I did have the opportunity to meet with the director of Friends of the Children, and they are very interested in expanding the partnership with the district. Not sure in what way, but they are interested in providing some support availability, probably like an on-call service, I guess, kind of, if the district would be interested. So we can maybe discuss that a little more at another time.
Just like we had one of the students speak in public comment about the various bills that are being discussed in the legislature right now, I encourage anybody to look up those bills, especially regarding education, and see what's happening that might be impacting our schools across the state and particularly here locally. Another thing that's happening that we discussed at our budget committee earlier is the state school fund. I would encourage you to look at what the governor has proposed and what might be passed by the legislature, which will not meet current service levels. This is really, really huge across the state, especially for our district. You can write your legislators and you can tell them how important it is to fully fund our schools so that we can at least maintain current service levels, but ideally, for once, fully fund our schools, which would be highly appreciated. But this underfunding is absolutely not acceptable. And I encourage our community members to become more aware of what is happening across our state and what will impact our students for years to come.
Yeah, I wanted to thank our presenters tonight, especially the student award to Nev. She's just an amazing example. And also, salute to Mike Fox's Design Justice class. And then also just calling out the amazing work that's being done with our lead folks. And then sustainability. So tonight, when I think about all the presenters, I think about all the work that's going on in our schools and the educational process that's happening and really ingraining these healthy and responsible behaviors in school. I guess I'll just say that it warms my heart that we are cultivating this, we're fostering and cultivating this culture of responsibility and doing our part, and to see that start, elementary, even younger than that, is pretty amazing. So thank you, presenters.
Yeah, I also want to thank all of our presenters tonight, particularly our students who came. Our champion for students, the work that she has done advocating for school-based health centers and the Menstrual Dignity Act and improving mental health outcomes in our schools, our student speakers tonight. We need to be listening to our kids. They give us a very clear expectation of what they want their future to be, and it is not necessarily the future that we are seeing in this type of legislation that one of our presenters showed us tonight. 3 of these bills in particular target transgender students in sports. The state of Utah passed that law about a year ago, and it was vetoed because when the governor looked into it, it affected 4 students in the entire state. Why is our legislature wasting their time and our money on something that is targeting a very small number of kids? And these kids are already kids who are at high risk of self-harm. Transgender youth are 4 times more likely to attempt suicide than straight kids. 5% of our youth identify as transgender. The fact that we are trying to, not we, some people, are targeting a minority group is shameful. And as adults, we should be ashamed of fellow adults who are choosing to target minority youth. I feel very passionately about that issue. And I think it is time that those of us who champion freedom, we call that out, because that is not freedom, that is fascism, that is control, and that is hate.
Thank you. I have 2 appreciations. My first appreciation is for Tasha McFarland, who chairs our budget committee. She has done this for multiple years. It is a big job. Quite honestly, I don't know what we'd do if she wasn't chairing our budget committee sometimes. But it was nice to see Robert get roped into being vice chair. But Tasha just does amazing work for us, and I want to appreciate her. The second person I want to appreciate is Vice Chair Marcus LeGrand. This has been an incredibly busy season. That man leads work for the season of nonviolence at COCC. He leads work across our community for Black History Month, and he is getting ready for the celebration of Juneteenth. He does so much for our community through his role at COCC, his professional role, in his role as vice chair of this board, and as a real true community leader. I just really want to appreciate Marcus. Finally, I do want to say, I believe very much, when I ran in 2019, I ran for agency inclusion, or agency equity and belonging, and that's what I believe in. I want every child in our schools to be able to have agency, to feel included, and to belong. And I don't believe that that starts at a certain age. And I don't think it applies to some settings and not others. So I was asked tonight to stand with our students, and I want to make it very clear that I do not support, I am firmly against HB 3044, HB 2186, SB 453, SB 749, HB 2477. Those do not promote equity. They do not promote inclusion. They do not promote belonging for our children. Thank you. Marcus, do you have comment?
I wasn't going to say anything at first, but I want to thank you for those comments. That means a lot. Thank you all for all the work you do in the community, our board, and I think all the presenters, as well as Superintendent Cook and Deputy Norquist as well. Thank you so much for all the work you guys have been doing over working with all the different things that we're trying to change and implement and streamline. Like I said, this work is going to keep continuing. I want to thank all our teachers and our students for their courageousness. But one thing I want to definitely talk about really quick is behavior of students. We know what respect is in our classrooms and in our hallways and in our communities. Let's start continuing to reach each other with some respect, because unfortunately we have a lot of mental health issues currently going on within our community. And I want us to continue to find ways to heal. And I know a lot of the things we presented tonight will allow us to do so. Also with the work with the SEL team, Mackenzie's work, so on, and her team as well. So let's continue to keep trying to find some opportunities to be able to encourage one another, support one another instead of belittling or being disrespectful. So let's keep doing that work. Thank you guys for tonight.
Thank you. Our next meeting is a work session scheduled for April 25th, 2023, and our next regular business meeting is scheduled for May 9th, 2023. With that said, this meeting is adjourned.